Christina of CraftyPaws. I am so excited today to do a collaboration video with Jen, ScrapbenaCreations. And if somehow you don't know Jen already, you must go check out her channel. She is so talented, super sweet. She does awesome organizational videos. She has the most impeccable taste in clean and simple cards. And she loves lawn fawn. So when we decided we were going to do a collaboration, we thought, why don't we try to use the same stamp set and see what we can each come up with? Surprisingly, the only stamp set we had in common was this one. It's the Love You S'more set. So I thought I would try and make a really clean and simple card. And I have to tell you that on the surface, clean and simple cards are easy. But you have to really be careful because any mistakes are really much more noticeable when they're clean and simple because there's not a lot to hide mistakes with. I'm going to do a process video showing you how to make both of these cards. As you can tell, the design is basically the same, but one I did a stamping, masking, and then stamping. So it looks like the little bears are kind of cuddled up, snuggled up next to each other. And I did the same thing here, but I used no line coloring, so I didn't have to actually mask. I stamped and then I stamped again and just colored. So I hope you enjoy this process video. So I'm starting with the Love You S'more stamp set, and I'm going to do the traditional layering stamping here with Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I'm making a mask here just using a plain Post-it note. And I had pre-printed out from my computer the sentiment, I love you very much. And here I'm just fussy cutting out the mask. And I stamped it once, as you can see on that card front. And I'm putting the mask over top of that and then taking the ink again and stamping out the second bear. And I'm offsetting it a little bit so that it looks like one is kind of behind and higher up than the other. And I'm putting down a base color coat of the front bear, which I wanted to color in kind of lighter colors. So that's an E21, and the medium tone is E23. And I'm just marking down kind of where the shadows would be between the legs, tucked in on behind the front two legs, on the sides of the face to give the face a rounded look. And now I'm using the darkest tone, E25, and I'm going over the same places where the shadows are that I placed with the mid-tone. And now I'm expanding the shadowed areas a little bit with that mid-tone marker again. And then I'm blending with that lightest color, trying to keep as light a bear as I can, but really wanting to get the full range from light to dark. And you can see there on the front leg, I kind of missed a section on the right, and that was just because I didn't want to have the bear become too dark, and I wanted to keep that as light as possible. But I will color that in, as well as the muzzle with that light E21. And I just go back and forth blending, as you can see, trying to get a soft, smooth coat. And you can use the lightest shades like the E21 to push out the medium and darker colors. So you can see that the bottom part of the bear has actually gotten much lighter because it's almost like the blender, the 0 marker. You can really push a lot of the color off using the lightest tones here. And I wanted to put in the darkest shadows in again because so much of it had bled out. So I'm putting back in the darkest E25 in the crevices. And here I'm putting in a little blush. I'm using R20. And I want to blend that back in so that there aren't harsh edges to the blush. So that's being blended out with E21. The second bear I'm using slightly darker browns, and that is an E55. The mid-tone is E57, and the darkest that I'm going to be using is E59. And I basically go through the same sequence again, marking in my shadows, then going in again with the darkest, and then blending back and forth. See, here's the darkest. And the darkest in the bear behind the first bear, the shadows, remember, are also going to be coming not only from the light but also from the shadow cast by the bear in the front. So you'll see that I'm putting in a darker shadow on the left side there. And at some point you think, oh my gosh, this is looking horrible, so dark. But again, I'm pushing out the medium and dark colors with that lightest E55. So it really does lighten up the bears. And I like the two contrasting brown bear colors. So the front bear is supposed to be me, the lighter female bear, and the darker bear is supposed to be my hubby. To add sparkle to the eyes and a little highlight on the noses, I'm using a white Jelly Roll pen. For version 2, I'm using Memento Desert Sand ink, which is a pale kind of tan color, and I am inking up my stamp and stamping that first bear, the bear that I want in the front, down first. And here I make a mistake. I shouldn't have gone back in to re-ink. I should have just done a second generation stamping there. If I had, then on the cheek, on the left side of the front bear, I wouldn't have had that darker line that was hard to cover up with the lighter colors of Copic markers that I ended up using. In order to do a fair comparison, I'm using all the same colors that I used for the traditional stamping and coloring on the first card. I'm using the same colors here on the second card in the no line coloring. So the light color is E21, the mid-tone is E23, and the darkest is E25. And again, I just laid the base color down with the lightest color. I'm marking in the shadows with the mid-tone, and then I'm going over those shadowed areas with the darkest color. Now I'm going back to the mid-tone and extending the shadowed areas. And at this point, you might be freaking out because the colored image does not look that good. And you're wanting to blend immediately, which is what I do. I take the lightest color and start blending. But obviously it's not enough of the mid-tone there. So I have to go back to the mid-tone, extend that area more fully, and then I can go back with the lightest color and push out the mid-tone colors where I want it to be more highlighted. And you really do get a nice rounded kind of roly-poly look on these bears by just taking your time and blending. Now remember, in no-line coloring, you have to go back in with a Copic multi-liner pen to put the features back in because they're so light. After you finish Copic coloring, all those features like the eyes and the nose and the little mouth all disappear. So it's not difficult to do. You can still see them really faintly. It's hard to detect in the video, but you can still see them. So it's just a matter of tracing them back in. Here you see me putting in the darkest shadows again in the crevices because it had gotten a little too faded out, a little too washed out. So I'm just going back over that with the darkest marker color there. Now the second bear, again, I'm using the same colors, E55, E57, and E59. The beginning is just laying in the base color with the lightest shade, then taking the mid-tone and going in and laying in where I know that the shadows are going to be. And again, I am trying to make sure that I remember to put in the shadows cast from the front bear onto the back bear. And then I'll go in and use the darkest color here to really intensify the shadows where I think it's going to be the darkest. And this is where the coloring looks awful before any of the blending has happened, and you're just marking in where the shadows and the highlights are going to be. But don't get scared, take your time, breathe, and go back and forth. Again, going back to the mid-tone, laying in more of the shadowed areas. And again, if you're afraid you've put down too much, don't worry, because with the lightest color, you'll be able to push back the mid-tones and even the darkest color a little bit more. See, the forehead is already getting lighter, and you can use that lightest color to push out the other colors. And here I'm working on pushing those out to get the rounded, lighter colors into the arms and into the haunches. And here I'm using my Copic multiliner pen to draw back in those eyes and that nose and mouth. And again, I'm using a white Jelly Roll pen to put in the highlights on the noses and on the eyes. And I think those little white touches add so much. It really brings to life the little images. I'm using some double-sided foam adhesive and I'm cutting them in strips so that I can put this card front on the card base. I'm using a neutral peachy colored card base because I thought that coordinated nicely with the bears. And I'm finishing off the card with some heart enamel dots by Cloud9 Designs in the same kind of peachy color. I hope you enjoyed this process video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to check out Jen's video. I can't wait to see what she's made with this Love You S'more set. Thanks so much for watching.